What's going on, guys? I want to thank you once again for tuning in to the channel. There's an interview I did, it was about a couple months ago, and I was with Professor James Clingerman. He owns the Indiana Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy in Greenwood, Indiana. Phenomenal gym. He has some content on YouTube, tons of content on YouTube under his just James Clingerman. So we shot this episode one time, and he came down, we shot it, and kind of early on, there was some problems. You know, there was just a bug crawling on the light, which, you know, I'm like, whatever. And then I spilled my energy drink while I was talking to him, bumped my head on the boom arm, and it spilled my drink, and I'm just like, oh my God. So now I've got a big stain on my shirt, and then probably like 45 minutes into the interview, my batteries in my camera die. And I'm like, I stop him. I'm like, dude, we're just sitting here talking to nobody. So he was like, well, we can, charge the batteries or whatever you need to do. And I'm like, look, man, that's going to take too long. So I wind up going back, buying some adapters that plug into the wall, getting rid of the need for batteries for your camera. Come out a second time. He comes out 2 weeks later. We shoot again, and the SD cards run out of memory. It just rookie mistakes. I know, stupid stuff that I could have prevented, but we got through that. We were able to finish out the interview, and then I'm going back and putting it all together, and there's audio problems, I think, on my mic. So I talked to a few people about it, try to fix some of it myself, and just being new to this, it really just makes me mad at myself, because kind of what I've always told people is I love having guests on. People always thank me for having them, but the guests are what make the channel make anything interesting, really. I mean, so it was just something that made me mad at myself, but he was very gracious about it. And James, if you're watching this, I want to thank you once again, man, for coming out a second time. And so he is probably the best example of what, I think he's been doing jiu-jitsu now for almost 30 years. He's still pretty young, 4th degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's had some pretty traumatic stuff happen in his life, but he was able to persevere and get through it. And that's someone you want to be around. That's someone you can learn a lot from, and always kind of reflect and say, hey, if he can get through that, what am I worried about? So barring the audio, it was still a great interview. I really hope you guys enjoy it. I just wanted to put this little disclaimer out there before we start the interview. So anyways, if you guys can look past my little mistakes, I really hope you enjoy the interview. And once again, thank you for tuning in. Okay, turn these on. All right, we're gonna try this one more. Try this the second time.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I
got plugged in.
Oh, listen, I took my time this time, man. I was just, I appreciate you coming back.
Yep, for sure.
Because that was completely my fault. Well, someone of your caliber too, because I was like, man, I don't think there's not another you out here, at least not on this side of the equator. I don't think so. It would be pretty hard to.
Got a doppelganger somewhere.
Well, and I was so disappointed because we recorded for an hour, and I bumped my head on the boom arm while you're talking. I spill an energy drink, which I guess I didn't learn, and then there was a bug, like just beat bopping up your. Well, didn't he crawl on your arm or something?
I think he landed on my head, and then he just sat on my shoulder for quite a while.
He had something to say.
I was hoping he was going to come back.
Well, he was in the light there, maybe a cousin or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were talking for probably an hour, and we got so much stuff that I want to release as like a B-roll later. That way it's not just wasted. But so you're a 4th degree black belt.
Yep, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you own 2 gyms?
Just one. I sold one.
You sold one.
About what month are we in now? This is July 24th. So I sold it in October.
August.
This is August.
Yes, sir.
Wow. I sold it in October of 2023.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was actually my very first black belt. A guy named Matt Strata. He opened it and ran it for about 4 years, and then he moved to Maryland, so he's a firefighter out in Maryland now. And then so I bought it from him around that time, and then ran it for just over 5 years, and opportunity came to sell it to a guy, and everything worked out, so it happened.
Well, how tough is it? I mean, running one, let alone two.
Yeah, it was definitely challenging. Staffing is always challenging, and I'm glad I just have the one. I ran 2 academies years ago and encountered the same issues. And actually, it's funny because when Matt was looking at moving to Maryland, he was trying to sell the gym Endurance. Came to me, and we sat down, did all this stuff, and I was like, absolutely not, don't want it, absolutely not. And then one of my other black belts, right around the time, was like, hey man, I'm thinking about opening my own gym. And I was like, really? It's like, well, let me reconsider this other gym thing. So I went to him and I was like, hey Daryl, I'm thinking about buying Endurance. I could put you in as the head coach. It's already got members, it's already got all this and that. Would you be interested in that instead? And he looked at me for a minute and he goes, nope. But if you need anything, let me know. And he knocks on my desk and he walked out. And I was like, oh my God. Did I just make him mad?
It sounds like it.
Yeah, he was super mad. And I was like, I don't even know what was said. I don't know. And I don't know, a couple hours later, he actually texted me and he's like, hey man, just, I'd be honored to do that. I think that sounds perfect, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, cool, man. And so the next time I saw him, I was like, hey, why were you all mad about that? And he's like, I wasn't.
There's people like that.
And I was like, Daryl, you acted mad. And he's like, no, I just wanted to run it by with the old lady. I was just thinking on it. And I was like, oh, well, your thinking face needs to change because you seem mad.
Yeah, there's people like that, though, man. They can't convey emotion. They feel a totally different way than what their facial expression is. But
I probably do the same thing. I've been told to fix my face quite a few times. I'll be thinking about something. Perfect example. I was in Hawaii, and I was getting ready to went to this other gym, Foundation BJJ, great gym out in I think they're in Kauai, if I remember right. If that's not correct, I apologize. But I went in and I was watching this guy teach these loop choke variations, and loop chokes are one of my my favorite moves. Mm-hmm. And I was just kind of watching and I'm like, I'm looking, I'm interested. I'm seeing how he's setting it up, and I'm thinking through it and everything, and kind of trying to put it into my game. And my wife at the time, she turns and she goes, "Hey, choreograph your face." And I was like, "What?" She goes, "Your face isn't reflecting what you're thinking." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Well, what's a good thinking face, though?
I don't know.
Furrowed brow, you're kind of...
Yeah, I think it can come off as judgmental, right? So, here I am, a visitor. I'm higher ranked than the coach teaching, and I'm looking at I'm looking with interest, right? And I'm thinking through it, but, I think it was maybe just them not knowing me. It might have been coming off as judgmental.
Yes, I agree.
And I was like, man, yeah, I definitely don't want that. So I made sure to actually at that point, or not at that point, but when the next class started, I pulled the guy aside and I was like, "Hey, dude, I really like that. Can you run me through that real quick?" Mm-hmm. And just so in case there was anything,
yes.
I didn't seem like I was looking down on his.
You're showing some I don't know, humility or some.
Yeah.
You're not like, "Hey, I don't know if you were a fourth degree at that time or a third or
third, probably."
You're not saying, "Hey, I know this. I know more than what you forgot. I forgot more than you know." So. Yeah, I was reading something about BJJ politics. Man, I don't know what kind of viewer base this video is going to draw. Hopefully all kinds. But there was this thing about the Gracies kind of I was reading about Roy Harris. Roy Harris was one of the Dirty Dozen.
Yeah.
And then he was talking about, or he got asked to leave because he was training with this guy, and then there was some rifts, and it's throughout the Gracie lineage, and then you had the Machado thing, and it's I don't know, they would guard moves, and they wouldn't allow people to come train or at other places, or they wouldn't?
Yeah, it was, man, I will say there's definitely still guys like that out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not quite as common.
That's
Like I'm very open. Like I love having people come visit me. When I travel, I always try to visit another gym or gyms. You know, like I think I took a trip just a few months back to Florida for a week, and it's probably the first trip I've ever taken where I didn't visit another gym. And the place I was staying was actually like 2 blocks from a jiu-jitsu school, and just the timing of everything. And I think my back was a little.
You bring
hurt.
I was going to ask you this because there's days where I feel really bad for doing it, and obviously with 3 kids and an infant now, the infant is the 3rd. I just made it sound like I had 4. I'm waking up, you know, working night shift and all this stuff, and it's like, man, I'll go to class, but I'm not retaining anything. I'm not getting submitted by these people. But I'm like, dude, I could have wrecked this guy a minute into the round. And it's not like it. It's just like I'm just like, man, I need to just like step back and go to sleep. My coach was like, dude, life happens. Yeah. It's okay. But if I'd say 2 weeks is where I'm like, I gotta go back, or I feel like shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I try never to take more than 2 weeks off.
So the same for you?
Yeah, I almost took 2 weeks off when I got shot in the face, but almost took 2 weeks off.
He's like, no.
Nah. You know, if your back hurts a little bit, you can take a month or 2 off. It's fine. No, I took 2 months. Actually, I took 3 months off. I had my meniscus in my left knee got really bad.
Is that one where the ref?
Yeah.
And you're just like, no, I'm good.
It got real. It was bad. Like, I heard it and rolled on it for like 13 years. And then it was 2 years of just being terrible. And then finally the meniscus started folding in. And so I was out for about a month just because it would fold in like almost daily and lock my knee out. And then after surgery, I was out for 2 months. And when I say out, like I was still in. Like I think Josh Hinger and I filmed his original Hinger Teen DVD when my knee was all messed up. There's some outtakes of like him doing the move, and I'm like, oh God, stop, my knee. But yeah, I was actually having a conversation with a guy at the gym right before I came here, and he's like, I'm back in. I rolled today, and I was like, oh, cool, man. And he's like, yeah, I just kind of, I think it was his knee, and I was like, it's okay to like chill and relax and rest, but also don't take so much time off that like it's
you're regressing.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
You can train through an injury, right? Like, and I don't mean like just go in and just go as hard as you possibly can and hurt yourself worse, but you make adjustments to your training. If my knees hurt, well, I don't do things that hurt my knee. And am I going to get beat up? Probably, but that's okay because there's stuff to learn there, right? So now I'm going to work on my defense. I'm going to work on, my ankles hurt and guys want to attack legs. Cool. I'm going to be really good at not giving up my legs. I think the knee injury for my jiu-jitsu progression was probably one of the best things that's happened to me because it forced me to completely change my game.
For the better.
For the better, right? Like, so I started doing like a Lucas Leitch guard or like coyote guard.
I don't know what either one of those are.
He calls it coyote guard. I think everybody else called it Leitch guard.
Okay.
But now, because he calls it coyote guard, I think it's coyote guard. Anyway, I sucked at it. I knew a bunch of moves from it, like to a point where I could be like, oh yeah, we can go here, we can go here, we can do this, we can do that. And then when I was forced to do only that, nothing worked. And I'm like, this sucks, and I hate it. But like, and I've got a good buddy. He's really good at it. And I went down to Tennessee. I was training with him, and I was like, dude, I cannot get this. Like everybody
saved
has
my
a
life.
guard. Like brand new people, kids, like legitimately. I'm not even making a joke. Like I'm gonna grab the smallest girl I can sweep with this, and she would just pass my guard. And I'm like, this sucks. And so he's like, well, lock it up on me. And I do it. And he goes, oh, push your hips in, like put pressure against the knee. I was like, what? And he goes, well, you're keeping your hips away. You got to push your hips into it. I was like, whoosh, push my hips in. And he's like, yeah, that's it. And I go, huh.
That's all I had to do.
Dude, yeah. It was like 10 minutes of maybe probably 5 minutes of that. I come back and had my way with everybody using it. It went from literally like 6 months of me just being completely frustrated with this to my A game.
And that's what I tell people is, and I think, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, the transition from white to blue is learning that you become a training dummy for so long, and then you get that little spark. I'm not gonna say I have a flame going yet, because I when I got a blue belt put on me, I was like, I want to go back to a 4-stripe white. I don't want, because I just don't want, it was like imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
But I've had a few of those moments, and I watched a video where you were talking about, was it the omoplata? You could not do an omoplata to save your life.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
yeah, my old coach Mario. I've got this on video actually. Like I just couldn't do it.
He's like, nope.
Yeah, he's sitting behind the camera and he's like, you can hear him like, and then finally he's like, okay, do this. And he comes over and he shows me a completely different setup, but it was just like, literally it was like, go to your knees, now roll. And I'm like, oh, I can do that. But it was like as soon as I went to my knees and rolled, I could do all the inversions and everything. So I went from like, I mean, it's probably a 30-minute video of me just failing. He shows me one little different move that's barely related. And then all of a sudden I'm like, boom, 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 hitting the stuff that I was failing before. And
that's got to be a great feeling.
Yeah, it's cool. So like, as I'm teaching, I'm always trying to find that little catalyst. Like, okay, you can't do this move, but I know you can do this move. I know you're capable of it. So we got to figure out what little movement in here is going to change your jiu-jitsu, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's just something as simple as an omoplata. Like, I can't do an omoplata. Oh, I can do an omoplata. Oh, I can't do a coyote guard sweep. Oh, I can. Sometimes it's I see guys like they learn how to learn jiu-jitsu, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I always talk about well, I'll give you two examples. So one of my guys, Donovan Green, he's still blue belt, got 3 or 4 stripes. He actually is with the school I sold. So technically he's not on my team anymore, but he still comes and trains with me. Very young, fit, athletic, very smart guy. Came in and he's trained 4 or 5 months, and I'm like, what is wrong with this guy? Like, you talk to him, he's very intelligent, very well spoken, just jacked, just an athlete, right? And like moves real well, and I'm like, why does he not get jiu-jitsu? Like, it's almost like he can't do anything right.
So he's just having problems all over
everywhere.
the place.
Like, yeah, couldn't pass guard, couldn't sweep, couldn't submit. Like, you show him the move, he can work his way through the moves.
He's a blue belt?
Now he is. So this is when he started.
You said 5. Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry. So this is when he started, right? So he just could not get it. And I'm like, what's wrong with this guy? And then I'm up there training one night, and I'm watching him roll with Coach Daryl. And he's doing leg lace passing. I think we're doing sweep pass or submit. So like Daryl's next to me, and I'm on my back over here, and I'm rolling, but I'm watching, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh wow, Donovan's doing some of the techniques right. I was like, it's cool. Daryl's working with him. And then time's up. He comes over to me, and he starts leg lace passing me, and I was like, holy crap, Daryl was not working with him. I'm like, what is going on right now? Like, this guy went from not being able to do anything right to like, he feels like a brown belt, passing my guard.
Damn.
And I was like, I pulled him aside after class. I was like, dude, that was amazing. Like, the way you put that together. He's like, yeah, I think Coach Daryl told me this and this and this. And what I found was like, over the next like 2 months, he applied whatever the concept was to everything, right? Like, just putting something together in combination, whatever little thing flipped in his head, it was like he did that with sweeps and passes and positioning and submissions. And he went from being like, could not put jiu-jitsu together to one of the best guys in the room. It was crazy.
I wish I could say the same. It's hard. I have heard of champion level chess players, neurosurgeons. I mean, I've read so many articles. I'm just because I'm interested in who makes it to this level.
Yeah.
Like, am I doing what I need to do because and there's going to be people watching this. It's like, oh my god, I don't care about applause. I think
it applies to everything though.
It does. It can be anything you're doing in life, and you're not getting it. You're beating your head against the wall, and then there's like this just literally the filament and the bulb just. But I read so many articles about people that come from. I mean, like up here. They're like Mensa society level, IQs of 160.
Yeah.
And they're like, dude, I cannot figure this out because chess is a fixed, it's a very static game, whereas you're playing chess and the pieces are always constantly moving. You have very narrow windows of opportunity.
All the pieces are always moving.
All the pieces are,
and some
the
days,
board is upside down.
Yeah, some days some of your pieces don't work the way they're supposed to. And when you move them, they hurt.
You're like,
oh, all right. The queen's not. She's not moving today.
Yeah, it's in the soldiers. Yeah, it blew my mind. And I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I was first exposed to jiu-jitsu, I thought side control. Just like, listen, I'm talking about like day one stuff, side control, and I'm like, if I was fighting someone in the street, I would not hold him down that way. And then there was, transitioning to mount, or it was, just this basic stuff, guard passing. I'm like, this is dumb. But then I realized, and then you see like the people that don't have that training, and they go to mount, and they're right on your hips. They're not up in your armpits where they're supposed to be. Or they're doing all this stuff, and you're like, bro, I could do this to you, that to you, that to you, that to you. And that's not what it's about. I mean, in certain self-defense situations or competitions it is, but it's just, man, it's an exhilarating feeling.
Yeah.
And I'm pissed at myself that I waited until I was 30.
Yeah. Well, and, like, as far as, like, learning it goes, like, better start at 30 than start at 40.
Yeah.
Better start at 40 than start at 50, right? Like, but as far as learning goes, like, there's so many little things, like, talking about, like, jiu-jitsu and chess, like Josh Waitzkin, right? He wrote The Art of Learning.
Okay.
If you've never read that, definitely read it. It's a quick read. So
The Art of Learning?
Yeah, The Art of Learning by Josh Waitzkin. So he was, if you've ever seen the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer, that was based on Josh Waitzkin. But he was also, he was a chess champion. He was a 2-time world Tai Chi push hands champion, and he became Marcelo Garcia's first black belt in jiu-jitsu. So the book was written right as he was starting jiu-jitsu. So there's very little mention of jiu-jitsu, and it's mostly about chess and Tai Chi.
Okay,
and then there's a little mention of jiu-jitsu kind of near the end of it. But really good book. But what I found is, like, especially with jiu-jitsu, people come in with all these different reasons why they can't learn jiu-jitsu, right? Some of them are like, just preconceived notions of what it is, or like you said, like, well, I wouldn't do it that way. Well, who are you? Are you a jiu-jitsu black belt? No, then shut up and stop thinking like that.
Well, and you don't have, and the beautiful thing about it too is you don't have to do it that way.
Yeah.
If it works, I have seen, and the way you would do something at your level is more than likely going to be way different than when I do it, because you have such an intimate knowledge of it, where I have like the generic, like, oh, do this. And you're like, well, if you do this, you need to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you're right. It's like, man, it's great. I don't know. I'm just mad at myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, don't be.
I'm not.
I know, but you said it twice, so there's
I am
a
mad at
little bit of
myself.
something
Okay,
there,
all
right? Like,
all right, I'm sorry.
Like, but stuff like that, right? Like even something just you going, man, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. Well, you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So don't let that hinder you either.
Well, you and I were talking about. I don't know if it was if it was recorded or not, but you and I were talking about. I think like weightlifting. You were talking about your purple belt. Was it Patrick? It was just smashing you. Was it Patrick?
Caleb.
Okay, you're like, Caleb. I teach at my school. Don't tap from pressure, but it's like this guy was just like,
Yeah.
But what I was saying with that is, like, I was a power lifter. I benched over 400 pounds at one point in 2017. Probably could still do close to that, but I'll tell you, I wish, I'm kind of piggybacking off what I said that I'm mad at myself, but like I could go back and just totally change how I trained.
Oh, yeah.
Because the weightlifting thing, I think it's great. I think raw power or strength has its place in jiu-jitsu, but man, it's the smaller guys, you know, and then God forbid there's a guy my size that has, you know, he's a purple belt or something. It's like, that's where I'm like, man, technique really matters, and really getting into the intricacies of just, you know, it's just such a fun, like, you're never going to figure it all out. Yeah. You know, even at your level, how do you feel about, like, I'm sure you've probably seen some variation of everything. Maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Man, so I'm still very big on continual learning in jiu-jitsu, continual improvement, right? Like, I just even recently, within the past 6 months, I've changed a couple little details of my guard passing. You know, it's the same stuff I've been doing forever, but it's like, oh, little detail here, little detail there, and it just made a huge difference. I pulled one of my black belts the other day. He came up, he actually got a 2nd degree, and I just pulled him and I said, hey, look, I'm just doing this. Check this out. And he was like, holy crap. He said, are you freaking kidding me? I was like, nope, check it out. Easy stuff.
Blew his mind, or?
Blew his mind. So I normally don't cuss, especially on podcasts. So you can bleep this if you want. But
probably won't.
So same story, same techniques. Okay. So Maynard Keenan, lead singer of Tool, posted for Perfect Circle. Mm-hmm. So I've done a few private lessons with him, and the most recent one was down in Nashville, Tennessee. And he was working some knee lever sweeps from half guard. And so we went over some stuff. I let him work what he was doing. And then near the end, he's like, hey, you know, how are you passing half guard? And he's like, you know, Henry Akins showed me this, and Todd Fox showed me this, and XYZ. And I said, okay. I said, here's what I'm doing. Very simply, here's what I'm doing. So I showed him the first one. I was like, pretty much what everybody does, but here's 2 cool little details. Been working great. He's like, cool. And I said, or I do this. And so I did the 2nd pass, and he goes, fuck you. And he jumps up. He's like, fuck you. Fuck that. Do it again. And he lays down. And like, so I showed him again. He looks up at the security guy. He's like, man, fuck this guy. Fuck that. And like, but it was just his way.
He's
of
a
being
different,
like,
he's a different guy. Yeah.
But we were cracking up about it.
He's drinking any of his wine?
And he's like, no, I don't. I've never had alcohol.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
No drinky. But yeah, and he's like, let me do it. And then, so I do it, and he's like, hold my leg. And I was like, no, I am holding your leg. Like, so I lock it down, I squeeze it, and whoop, he passes perfectly. And he was just like, there was probably about 30 fuck yous in like a 2-minute little thing. And he's like, all right, man, thanks for the lesson. I got to go sing at a concert. And then he's like, let me drill that about 5 more times. Right. But like, that was something I just started doing. I said 6 months. It's probably been a little longer than that, but it's just refining like little tiny details that probably everybody's kind of seen. They just didn't think about it, right? It's like, oh, hip to the floor. Well, maybe butt to the floor is better, mm-hmm. Right? Just little stuff like that. So as I go, like as I'm doing jiu-jitsu, like I'm always looking to refine old techniques, but I'm also trying to learn new stuff. Like there's always new stuff out there. Mm-hmm. In the world of the internet and the, all these streaming sites and all this and that, like
I get inundated
everywhere. Right. And you can get into the mind of like any jiu-jitsu guy you want.
What year? I think I know the year, but what year did you start jiu-jitsu? It was in the 90s, wasn't it? I
started Brazilian jiu-jitsu in June of 97. So I'm right past 17 years. No, 27 years now.
Is that
right? 27 years, yeah.
27 years ago.
So I've had my black belt going on 17 at this point.
I was going to ask you, how big, or like, when did you think jiu-jitsu just exploded? Because it seems like it's like, it is everywhere, but it's like...
Man, I think it was a couple things. I think, number one, the Ultimate Fighter TV show really did a lot for jiu-jitsu. It did a lot for MMA in general, but also around that time, I think is when all the MMA shows kind of started dying down, at least here in like Indiana. I know like the commissions took over, so a lot of your little backyard cornfield fight circuits just kind of plummeted. So I think, number one, that was a big part. I know it was a big part of my school. Like we got a lot of phone calls and a lot of new members and stuff around that time. We also ran commercials during Ultimate Fighter on TV, so that helped.
Nice.
But man, and then just recently, like if you look at it, like EBI kind of started some of the streaming stuff, but then you got like Fight to Win and Who's Number One and like all these jiu-jitsu shows, and now ADCC's huge, and now you got the Craig Jones Invitational starting up, and so there's all this jiu-jitsu out there, and a lot of it's no-gi, so no-gi's kind of gaining more popularity, and I like both. I train both. I compete both. I say that I don't really train much no-gi. I compete no-gi. Yeah, I just...
It's like, I mean,
It goes in like these little, not even waves, but it's just like, it's like a hump, right? Like something happens, boom. Ultimate Fighter happens, cool. EBI happens, boom. Cool. NWO happens, boom. And then, now it's on YouTube, and it's on Amazon, and it's on, there's Flow Grappling, and there's all these different sites, and then even stuff like Karate Combat now. So people that aren't watching grappling, they're watching like this kickboxing, but then the kickboxing has grappling matches also. And then, what is it, like One Fighting Championship. So you got these MMA fans that might be familiar with jiu-jitsu, but now they're also doing grappling matches. And they've got grappling titles and stuff. So it's nice to see the grappling just kind of getting thrown in there with the kickboxing and with the MMA. And I think ultimately, man, even the people that come in and they want to do MMA, I get tons of young kids like, I want to be an MMA fighter. And they come in and I'm like, okay, well, you need to do kickboxing, you need to do jiu-jitsu, and they come in and they start falling in love with jiu-jitsu, and then they get hit in the face in kickboxing, and they're like, I don't like getting hit in the face, but I like choking people.
It is fun.
Maybe I'll just do jiu-jitsu,
Well, man, this is a heavily debated one. I've seen two different ones. I saw a grappler versus a Muay Thai fighter. Muay Thai fighter gets taken down. It's over. And then I saw one where a jiu-jitsu guy got knocked out. I don't think he got knocked out. I think it was like a TKO.
Yeah.
What's your high-level striker? Here's my opinion. I think it comes down to luck. I think it comes down to if the stars align for the one-sided, the red guy versus the blue guy. If you fought on Tuesday, you might have a different outcome on Friday. If they're equally trained in both in their separate respective disciplines. I do think grappling, though, I lean more towards grappling because I think most fights do go to the ground.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when one guy wants them to go to the ground, right?
Yes.
So watch a Muay Thai fight where you have two Thai fighters. Watch a boxing match where you have two boxers. One guy always hits the other guy harder, and that guy immediately clinches.
Yes.
Yeah. So grappling is in our nature, right? And I tell people, like, if you look at animals in nature that strike, they have hooves or horns. We don't have hooves or horns. We have tiny little bones on our hands and our feet.
Yes.
Some of the smallest in our body.
Fragile, too.
Very fragile. Covered with soft connective tissue. Covered with soft skin. Like, we are not meant to strike as a species. Right?
We wear boxing gloves when you do strike.
Right.
Protected here.
So, with that said, I love Muay Thai. I love jiu-jitsu. I think there's a couple ways to look at it, right? Like, okay, you have a high-level jiu-jitsu guy. If this guy has 0 takedowns, which to me means he's not a high-level jiu-jitsu guy, he's going to have to run in and pull guard, okay? So, it could happen. However, in general, a Muay Thai fighter trains to fight Muay Thai fighters. A jiu-jitsu fighter typically starts, at least, with self-defense in mind and learns how to clinch against kicking, clinch against striking.
Well, and you incorporate judo, too.
Right. So you incorporate judo, you incorporate wrestling, whatever. I think 9 out of 10 times it's going to be a high-level jiu-jitsu guy. I think where we're running into issues is you get some blue belt that hasn't really done a lot of clinching, hasn't done takedowns, hasn't used ropes or a wall or a cage to pin somebody against and try to take them down. And then you get some like super stud kickboxer that has trained to stay on his feet probably the kickboxer's going to win, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. Like equally trained, or both highly level, whatever.
I think the grappler wins almost every time.
Yeah.
And I think UFC proved that, right? And there's debate like, oh, well, it was just meant for Hoist to win, like these. But you look at guys like Gerard Gordeau as a legit striker, Kevin Rozier, legit striker. Man, who all was in UFC 1?
Oh God, you're going way back.
Zane Frazier, right? Legit striker. He was a Frank Dukes black belt. He ran Dukes Rudin and Jitsu school. Come on. Who else did we have in the early UFCs? Pat Smith, legit striker. Like we had some good, like Orlando Veet. Like we had good strikers back in the day. These guys were studs.
You have encyclopedic knowledge of this stuff.
Like they were good. Even man, now that you said it, I'm drawing a blank. The came out with one glove on. Like people were like, oh, he was a journeyman. That guy was a professional boxer and he held titles. That's a good striker, right? Like most guys aren't on a professional boxing level, and even if they are, they're not winning titles.
What do you think about that? Is it Gary Good? What was his
Gary
name?
Goodrich.
Gary Goodrich. They got the guy in the crucifix.
Oh man, I was just talking about that with somebody yesterday.
That was brutal.
Yeah, those broke his. That was
orbital.
Herrera, right? Paul Herrera.
Dude, it was over very quickly.
Yeah. So it was funny back in the day. They were like show that was the video, right? Like to show how brutal it was and to get everybody to watch it. And then it was like when they were trying to kind of get it all like legit and legalized everywhere, they're like, hey, don't ever show that video. Like just bury that thing. Like I don't want that video to see the light of day at all.
It was bad, wasn't it?
Yeah. My brown belt Ryan, we were literally yesterday talking about this, and he goes, I remember when I first saw that. He's like, it wasn't live. He goes, it was like some sketchy, like bad quality online video. And he goes,
gritty.
Like real gritty. He goes, it looked like the guy's whole head was caved in and his jaw was partially hanging off. He's like, it was just such bad quality. He said it actually made it look more brutal because you could see.
Well, I tell people too, in modern day society, jiu-jitsu, martial arts in general, but jiu-jitsu really has a special place in my heart because, and I'm not going to say I know anything about karate or any other martial art that, I don't know how it's paced. I know that there's some legit hardcore places out there, but with jiu-jitsu, most of the time it's you versus you, especially if you're sparring or you're rolling and you're tired and you're mentally just like, you're not dying.
Yeah.
You may feel like you are. And I mean, I'm not saying you're in a submission where this guy's got you like he's choking you or he's reaping your knee or something. I mean, like he's just like pressure or you're just gassed. And it's just like, it's you. And I tell myself, I'm like, you ever get a glimpse of the clock when you're just like, oh my God, 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
But if I can.
Sometimes you're like, I want to just quit. And you're like, oh, I can't quit. There's only 15 seconds on the clock. I'm just going to suffer. I can suffer for 15 seconds. And then it's like.
That's a long 15 seconds.
That's a long 15 seconds. And then you're like, how come there's like 50 seconds still left? You're like, oh, there was a minute and 15.
Oh, I've had that happen. Yeah,
like,
that's not.
Okay, we're under a minute. I can suffer. I think the last time we were talking about like suffering in jiu-jitsu, just getting stacked up or just getting smashed or whatever. Some of the early like instructional VHS tapes were Pedro Carvalho. And I just remember Pedro going, you're not going to die.
Yeah,
like,
you did.
I'd just be in a bad place. I'm like, and I just hear Pedro. I've never even met Pedro in my life, which is funny because he was actually, so my coach, Aníbal Braga, is the one that promoted Pedro to black belt in Brazil.
I want to talk about him.
But I've never met Pedro, but he's been a big influence in my jiu-jitsu just simply because
that voice in your head.
You're not going to die. I'm like, okay, thanks, Pedro.
Oh, he's just, yeah. I mean, but it's power, but it's literally like you come out and you feel good about not,
Oh yeah.
And I've had maybe twice I've had this happen where I just thought, yeah, I'm done. I'm just going to play defense. And then they mess up.
Yep.
You get a sweep or you get the upper hand again and then you tap them. And you're like, dude, you go home and everything else in my life can be a wreck. Like my finances, my house can be dirty.
But you had a good night at jiu-jitsu.
I'm telling, man, and the people that are watching this that are like, I tell people all the time, I'm like, you don't have to train. You're not going into the UFC. You're not trying to be the next, whatever. But it's like, I'm telling you, it is it's almost like distillation of your spirit.
Yeah.
You're purifying your spirit. You're getting to a point where you're back to focusing on what's important in life, and that's in overcoming adversity.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, to me, it is. And then the techniques and the learning curve that goes along with it, that just makes it that much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I always say specifically with jiu-jitsu, it can apply with all martial arts to an extent, but I think especially the grappling arts, because there is a physical pressure element to it, more so than just getting punched and dinked, right? Like, you can literally have a guy crushing your being, like just crushing your ribs, making it hard to breathe, making your blood not want to pump, right? But like, I think jiu-jitsu just permeates into your everyday life in all aspects, because it's literally high-speed problem solving under pressure.
You said that, and I was telling, that is the perfect way to put it. The perfect way to put it.
Thanks.
I mean, I don't know if you learned it from someone else, but the high-speed problem solving, it is. It's like we were talking about the chessboard. The chessboard is upside down, and you're just sitting there like, oh my God, like, yeah, this guy's got my arm, and I want to do this, but I can't do that. I mean, we're just kind of nerding out, but I tell everyday people, even older people, I'm like, listen, I'm not saying go in there and go, do what you can, and most people will let you work something, and it's kind of like you were at. I've been to 2 of your seminars, and we were doing something. Oh, you were teaching. Can I tell the joke again?
Sure.
You were teaching. Is it?
I don't remember what you're talking about right now. But
you were teaching autoerotic asphyxiation. No. You know what's funny about
the erectile dislocation.
I know. Yeah. You know what's funny is I was trying to think of what it was, and I'm like, erectile dysfunction, and I'm like, no, that's not it. And then it went to that, and I'm like, that's definitely not it. But yeah, describe that again. Erectile dislocation.
Yeah, so it's just like a concept I'm working on. So I'm coming up with techniques to match the concept of it, right? So most of the attacks on the shoulder in jiu-jitsu are rotations, right? Rotation back, rotation forward, so like Americana or Kimura style. But what I'm looking at doing is creating pressure downward, so from the top of the shoulder down, and then basically lifting the elbow upward. And what happens is that shoulder dislocates downward and locks out. So your arm actually, it's like the worst way your shoulder can possibly dislocate, because the ball comes out and points the opposite direction it's supposed to. So your shoulder dislocates upright, and so it's called an erectile dislocation. It's got a Latin term that they use in the
Meta insight, yeah.
But yeah, so
that is that makes me nauseous.
I know.
Seriously,
I can't even finish it. I'll get guys in it, and I just go super slow. And if they tap, they tap, and if they don't, I'm just like, I think I probably have it. I'm gonna let go.
Well, I was gonna say, you showed that, and then my partner and I did it, and he was a bigger dude. He was like 260, and I'm 220. He was so I'm like, okay. And he's like, dude, he's like, you feel it? I'm like, no, I don't think I would tap to this. I would probably try to reframe and get my post, but I would try to get my arm like down.
Yeah.
And then we asked you, and you came over, and bro, I think you might have done like 20%. I was like, no, just stop.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is bad. So that was very fascinating. It kind of made me think, like, man, dude, if someone, that is, I've never seen that anywhere.
I've not seen anybody else do it. I started playing around with it because I had a few techniques that I was just doing it, and I was like, that's weird. And then so I was like, that's a different way to break the shoulder, right? And so I kind of started
different way to hurt.
Yeah, and so I started looking it up, and one of my students is a doctor. She's actually a geneticist. Erin Conboy, multi-time world champion. But I was like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Can you? And she came back. She's like, yeah, I think it's called I I think she was like, yeah, I think it's called erectile dislocation. She's like, I'll get the medical term, whatever. And, she was like trying to remember exactly. I think she went and looked it up. She's like, yeah, here it is, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, we'll just call it that. And she's like, that's brutal. And I was like, I know.
So you coined this move pretty much.
Yeah.
At least that variation of it.
I'm going to say yes. It's one of those things where, like, people have been grappling and twisting joints for thousands of years.
So it's probably been done
and
like 800 years ago.
Somebody's done it in some way, shape, or form. It's one of those things that I have not been taught this or any variation of this. So everything I'm doing, I came up with on my own, yes.
Yeah, I watched your Von Flue choke, your Peruvian. Well, you're talking about the Peruvian dozen. Yeah, I've got to try that Von Flue choke because, man, I was getting guillotined a lot, and I could get out of it, but it was strength based. I'd be so gassed.
Yeah.
And I'm back to square one.
So I'll tell you I did Nashville last year. I won gi and no gi. In the final, I fought a guy named Thomas Armstrong, very good jiu-jitsu guy. I believe he's actually ranked number 10 in the world currently at BJJ. And I felt that I could take him down, but I knew if I shot, he was going to try to guillotine me. I also know that I'm very hard to guillotine. So I was like, I feel like this is a good strategy. I'm going to shoot, let him guillotine me, try to Von Flue him. If not, I'll pop my head, I'll get my 2 points. So killed a minute of the match just standing. Instantly, at the minute mark, shot a double. He went for the guillotine. He had an arm in guillotine, which I'm pretty good at defending as well. You can't Von Flue out of it. So got my takedown, laid there, defended, and I was like, holy crap. Thomas, if you ever see this, you have a great guillotine. One of the best I've ever felt. I don't think I told you that. But, no, his guillotine was fantastic, and I was like, ooh, buddy. Okay, not going to get me, though. So I sat there, cooked the time a little bit, and then he hit a quick switch, pulled his hand out, boom, and re-gripped. And I was like, okay, that's real tight, but here's the Von Flue. So I locked up the Von Flue from inside full guard. And I know I had pressure on. I could hear him moving. I could hear him shifting. But he was smart enough never to really open his legs. I think he opened at one point, and
so that you could jump around, hold the leg and jump around.
But I've been able to finish it multiple times against a lot of good guys from inside full guard, and he did a great job just not tapping, not opening his legs. But I was in his guillotine for 3 minutes, and then I heard my friend say, she's like, 1 minute left, and I was like, okay. So did the standard. I let go of the Von Flue, grabbed the wrist, popped my head out, got my 2, passed a half, and laid there. I was like, all right, cool, I got 2, I'm done. And my sister had actually gone down with me, and I remember her. She was like, after, she's like, how's your neck? And I was like, I'm good. She's like, I could see your muscle fibers, like they look like they were twitching and like cramping and stuff. I was like, no, I'm good. 5-hour drive home, my shoulders started like coming up. I was like, oh God. It's like that's sore. But
anyone that's never been in a guillotine, and obviously, I think there's a concept too. Your neck does get used to kind of.
Oh yeah.
Because I would get one of my favorite chokes. I mean, it's just a basic bow and arrow choke. Mm-hmm. But I'll get people to, was it S mount or technical mount, and I'll just pop that back and fall back with them.
Yeah.
And I've noticed the longer that I've been training, most guys would immediately tap to that. And now they're fighting. I'm like, damn, is your neck just that much tougher?
Yeah.
Do you think there's a legitimate...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So, I mean, you get, I would say probably the muscles on the sides of your neck develop a little better, but like you get I think your trachea definitely gets...
my voice is raspier.
Yeah. I don't want to say callous, but like at least used to it, right?
Because I couldn't 3 minutes.
Yeah, it was a while.